Oh, thanks for the commentary, Luke.
It's like Mystery Science Theater. He's just one of those robots.
Better. Exactly.
No commentary.
The grown-ups are talking. Okay. So, Bex, with that, lead us
okay.
on.
Coming into this, I'm kind of like, I was, first of all, even in the chaos, it's just lovely to see all of you. And this has been like probably one of the hardest eras of my life. And yet the screen comes up and I see everyone's face and I'm just like, oh, I'm just so happy to be here. And so I think that, there's part of me looking at this script, which is like the beginning, how we met, the struggle of doing good in a profit first culture. Like we have these things that we set out and I think they're all very tangible and reasonable. And then there's part of me that's just like we just had this silly 45 minutes and maybe we should just roll with that and kind of see where it goes. Especially because we don't know if the video is going to cut out any minute from now.
Since we're here, let's go ahead and see how it goes with what we've got left and make lemonade, Yeah.
Also kind of be rolling with it. I don't know, just like how Bex was saying, like, coming in and seeing everyone here, it just makes me think of community. And then how we were going to talk about where we all started. We all started in the same place in very different locations, but in the same community base. Like we were in the same neighborhood. And then, we went different places. But there is still something really nice about coming and seeing everyone's face, like exactly as like Bex said. And earlier today, I met with Meredith because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Life is overwhelming. Every task I do adds 4 extra steps. I just keep saying yes to things and I need to stop. And talking to her, though, was like, okay, no, it's totally fine. You're okay. You can keep doing all your nonsense work. But like even that just a little bit of community between her and I is exactly what I needed in that moment to get grounded. So in the same sense of what Bex was saying, you're coming into this and there's a sense of safety and groundedness, which is also crazy because none of us have met in person. None of us really worked on the same teams. At one point, we all were coaches, but then we all went different routes. And yet there is this like beautiful sense of community and safety in this group that like, I know I can show up and be a hot mess. And it's like, yeah, but you're fine. Like, it's okay. And we can laugh and roll with the punches of absurdities, but still make beautiful sense.
Well, and that being said, what kind of has me curious with what both of you shared is where did you start? With us ending up here in this wonderful sense of community.
Well, I reached out to Bex during schooling, I guess, because she was sitting in a swing inside. And I was like, girl, what is that? Because that looks incredible. And I'm pretty sure that's how I first started talking to Bex, because she was in a swing inside. And that spoke to my childish heart.
Youthful.
Sure. Not yet grown adult.
Yeah, and I think Mollie and I just like hit it off. And I think this idea of like finding those people amidst the chaos, right? Like you're talking about, like the world is spinning, stuff is happening all around you. What is going on? And there's a lot of like instability, and yet you find your people. And then Mollie specifically, I remember like one of our first conversations, you were like, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Like I have this in me. And I remember like kind of like filing that away and being like, okay, I want to hold on to that. I want to remember that, because one of the things that we all knew from where we met is we all had a ton of talents that were being underutilized. But I think in that moment, just like you said, you saw this, so that swing, that was the anniversary present for Mark. And it's just like my happy place. I have one. Mark has one now. You can see behind it. And I think that was the process perhaps for all of us of somehow coming together and finding your people. I mean, I go back to like that Monday morning feeling, which was such a great feeling. And that was so odd to me. I'd never had a job that I would wake up on Monday morning and be just as excited to go see everybody virtually, right? But I was just as excited to show up on a Monday morning as I was to start my weekend.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well said. And I've got to echo that, Bex, that it's interesting to me to see often the really dissimilar threads that connect the different members of this group and the larger community, but yet observe how, kind of a cohesive, beautiful tapestry that all those threads still create, and that we're able to recognize that in one another. Even if we've never really met, like Mollie and I haven't really met beyond a little bit of virtual stuff, but I can promise you that we would have a conversation that would have people dying in the aisles within 5 minutes for sure. I mean, it's just like, so, and gosh, there's a lot to be said for that these days, to know that you've got a community of folks near and far that provide that sense of safety, that provide sometimes really unexpected commonalities that just allow us to revel in our shared humanity, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, that is great. That is great. And this is the first group I've run into that would put up with me. I mean, that was, just really something that allowed it to really feel like you belong with your uniqueness being expressed. And so that being said, sometimes you get feelings of that or inklings of that because of how much you desire it. But then for me, sometimes I just base it on just that initial connection. Even if there isn't necessarily a direct conversation, you see somebody in a group or you hear something that a few people say, and it just kind of catches you like a chord that's in tune versus everything else that doesn't align. And I can definitely say that for one of you, because we didn't really connect a lot as far as like working on same teams or anything along those lines, but there were just certain things or certain moves like dancing or something that just really allowed for that connection and the uniqueness to stand out and kind of go, wow, yeah, that's really nice to have that as part of an experience in my life, and I look forward to having that again. So here we are, and gathered and relating, and as I call it, having that opportunity to not only interact and share, but really to do it in a joyful, playful way. So we get to play.
In this short time, I'm like realizing how freaking extraordinary all of this is. Right. And perhaps there's a part of me that's taken it for granted, and part of me that's like just been so busy, you all know the overwhelm of like the last couple of months for me. And then there's part of me, I'm listening to this, I'm like, holy shit, like this is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. And it's true, we're coming from extraordinarily diverse backgrounds, perspectives, physical locations, ages. Like there are so many things, but like, you so often hear about diversity and this idea of like tolerating diversity or embracing diversity or like all the stupid that's in these like, mission statements or whatever, but it's also different from like actually utilizing it. Right. And I think that's fundamentally a huge part of what we do is we're like, okay, we're different. And that means that we all can contribute in different ways and we can support each other in different ways. I mean, the fact that we're all still here tonight doing this is amazing. And that idea of not having to choose between your life and your community or your life and your work, right? Like what I'm thinking right now is how many people have to make certain choices about, it could be everything from like material economic choices or choices in their workplace. Like I love that Meredith was able to be like, I need to go. And we're all like, absolutely. And there's not a part of any of us that has any issue with that. And I'll kind of close this thought with like, so much of what we talked about is this idea of wanting to recreate something that we had. Right. And a huge piece of that was like being able to show up as ourselves, being able to integrate work into our lives and not having to pick between our life and our work, but able to do this thing that we loved passionately, that we know had this incredible impact, and also live really well too.
It's like living the work. Like the work that we like to do is helping people and finding that balance and living life to the greatest extent that you're able to, and recognizing that it's going to take time, it's going to take growth, it's gonna suck. And I think having the opportunity to live that way and live what you work and what you believe in is an incredibly unique experience. I don't think a lot of people get to do that. And I'm grateful that this is something that I can pursue and navigate and just see, like, how can I continue making this my life moving forward so that like my work and my life are very blended, but still like very strong boundaries because, I'm human. But yeah.
I think to me, what you described there is that third of three stages that we encounter with with something. And the first is becoming aware of it. The second is kind of knowing it. And then the third is to essentially be it. And that last part is what you're describing, where you are it. It's beyond I know it in my head, or I know the mechanics of it. And it's definitely beyond, oh, I didn't even know that existed, or it just wasn't around.
I'm gonna make
Well,
it
actually,
exist.
that kind of lends itself
Nobody
to
does.
Oh, manifest.
where we're talking about like this environment. Like, okay, we had it. Like, we were being it, right? And a big piece of that was that we were in an environment that supported us being that, right? That supported, and then the environment shifted, right? And then it was suddenly so much harder to be. And that was difficult on all of us, right? Because it was working so well and it was really quite beautiful. And then the entire kind of topography shifted. And then we were like, wait, what's happening here? We suddenly can't be this.
And just to kind of go into a little bit of that, because I'm not clear. We believed it worked, but was it really working? And I say that from the standpoint of it seemed to me like for us possibly, but whenever you look at some of the supposed reasons for the changes, because some of them weren't sudden, some were gradual, is that because those that we were working with or working for or whatever, was it not working?
But the individuals that felt it wasn't working, i.e. the people we were working for,
Correct.
I would then challenge to have them really think what their end goals are. And as
Exactly.
things progress, the end goal was money. So in those eyes, no, it was not working. But in the eyes of the coaches effectively doing what they love and having all this education and empathy to give to individuals that just wanted help, that was working.
Yeah. What drives me to this day is having had that experience of seeing how good it can be in a team environment, in a workplace environment, and then to see what is offered in so many other places, and just basically I reject it. You know, and I think that we all kind of do, and we're willing to take matters into our own hands and say, okay, if you guys can't create it, then we will. Because the bottom line is, if we have lived it and we have experienced it, we should be able to replicate it and do it in a way that is sustainable, because we're starting with the correct intention, I think.
Yes.
Instead of saying, you know, we've got to have an exit strategy and need to, you know,
Right.
make $80 billion or whatever. It's like, we want to create a sustainable business that serves as many customers and clients as possible, and is also an uplifting, empowering, and growth-focused environment within which we can work and thrive. I mean, I think that's kind of it.
And I think to that end, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to kind of delve into this, is that we have right now the opportunity to really explore and determine what was working, you know, not just for us as coaches, but more specifically for those that we were supporting, those that we were helping, guiding. And that's what's going to make everything else go well too, including the business aspect of it. And that's why I question, you know, is it really working? And if the answer is yes, then what specifically is it that we're going to continue to do or discover or even optimize to maintain?
I love that, Mark. And the thing that really struck me, even back then when we were doing that work and it was working, was one, we had nothing in between us and the client. So there wasn't like a sales goal. There wasn't any sort of rubric. It was really just like go forth and do the work that's in the client's best interest. And that meant even if we had to pivot, even if we had to step outside of some kind of parameter or prescription, like which we didn't really even have, right? We were able to just be ourselves and do our work. And that was the second piece. So one, not having anything between us or any expectations that were outside of us serving the client. And two, it was having a lot of autonomy. You know, we all coach differently. We all came from different wisdom viewpoints, and we were able to utilize that in our work. And then the third piece goes back to what we were talking about, working in community, Like, I love the fact that I could look at my team and be like, hey, I don't know a lot about this piece, but I know that Allison does. And so let me message her and find out what she thinks I should be doing with this client. And then similarly, oh, Bex has a background in mental health, and people would approach me about how to approach different topics. And what ended up happening was this beautiful like synchronicity, because none of us were in it for any other reason than to support our clients. Right. And it wasn't ego driven, and it certainly wasn't financially driven. And like, we were there because we wanted to do this good work. And then we found that working together, we were so much more powerful and effective than we would have ever been working alone.
Yeah. Bingo. And I'm going to add one thing, and it might be a little controversial, but I hope not. It's not just what was working, but it's also what was not put into the mix from the beginning. Because while we had an incredible diversity of people, I mean, a wildly diverse population of employees, of teammates, there was a stark absence of greed, narcissism, competitiveness, and that speaks to how the people who were put into this mix, into this environment, were selected. And I think that's a critically important piece to think about as you build a culture, is not just what's in it, but what's excluded from it. Because there are certain characteristics or behaviors that are not conducive to collaboration, to service of others, and to a kind of collective approach to growth. And we had a beautiful experience of inhabiting that environment for quite some time. And I can tell you, there aren't many places like that.
Well, I would agree that there aren't places like that, and I'm not sure that I saw all of that synchronicity with variations in the beginning that have been described. I'm not saying that it's inaccurate. I'm just not sure I saw that because of how I thought about certain standards that were in place and certain rubrics that required conformity that to me appeared at times, maybe not to a significant level, but definitely a noted level of having a certain way of doing certain things. And that's what became more significant. That's what really grew into, there is a way to do certain things. There is a way to actually coach. There is a way to talk with these people versus either what you used to do or what you could do. And that, to me, is so different from where we are right now, and how with diversity, with these strengths and these gifts that all of us have, we're putting them together, and we're creating this unique. It goes beyond words just describing just how wonderful it is. It's so beyond what we could do individually, and that, from what I saw, I believe was lacking a little bit. And whenever I got further and further into it, I just saw that becoming even less of a situation, to have that contribution from different disciplines, from different experiences, and knowing that could make a difference. But nope.
Mark, you bring up a really important point, which is leadership, right? Like, my guess is that the reason some of us had wildly different experiences is because we worked in these small pods with different leaders. And so in my case, I felt like I had a leader that really supported our group in coming at things in our unique ways. And then I remember there was one competency that was listed that was, I remember it specifically, it was goes outside of protocol in the best interest of the user. Right. And I remember I just used that all the time. Anytime something came back at me, I was like, goes outside of protocol in the best interest of the user. And even when my, leaders struggled, they were like, can't argue with that, But I also know we worked with coaches that had a team leader who was a lot tighter and a lot more rule oriented, right? And there's no way I would have lasted in that environment. I would have been gone, because that's not how I operate. And so as we are developing what we're doing, the leadership piece, you're helping me see that that's critical, right?
Yes, right. especially with time as things continue to go, and it sounds like with what you described, the analogy is that maybe some of us had a redacted version versus those who didn't, and here we're removing all of those redacted versions, magic markers.
Yes, and going back to what Brian said, I mean, really, even within a context that was shifting and changing and trying to like hem us in and limit us, you know, we did end up working with a whole group of people that shared the same values, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. And we're able to identify those that we didn't necessarily work directly with, that we gravitated towards and started connecting as we started talking about this. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mollie.
No, you're totally fine. But it just keeps making me think of helping and asking for help. So the individuals that came for our service were asking for help. And we were there to help them. And then if we didn't know the right way, if we were still learning, whether it was like a standard script to follow or this formula to follow, we were given the openness to ask for help. Was that our direct supervisor, somebody on our team, somebody on a different team that we just kind of noticed on one of the channels? But helping and asking for help, I guess more specifically, just asking for help seems to be a very, very big thing, because when everything initially started, the intention was to help people. And I think somewhere along the way, American greed, corporate greed kind of took over. And it is exciting to think like you could make something really, really big, and you can get caught up in all of that. And I will never know what happened in all of the transitions. But I think the helping is what began to get lost, especially like by the end of my time. It was a very specific script to follow, and certain things you can and cannot do. And it took away a lot of the personality of the coaches and the ability to use the tools and the knowledge and education that each person has. And even to ask other people, because then you're like, oh, well, like, I don't know if this is too much. Am I stepping out of lines? Is this not okay? So asking for help across the board. And I think that's also like what's so beautiful with this group is that we can ask, and we have asked. And like, I don't know, there's a word I cannot think of, but it's a good one that applies to this.
Reciprocity? No, that's not the right word.
God, that's not even like mentally in my vocabulary.
I want to say, okay, so you just totally blew my mind a little bit there, because like one of the things I could look back and realize like how hard it was for me to ask for help. Like I grew up in that, like you don't do that, you don't show weakness, you never let people know that you're struggling, because that's failure, and failure is horrible and you can't recover from that, right? So this was my whole mindset. And then working with all of you back then, like absolutely taught me a different way of being. And what I realized was the times often that I reached out to someone and asked for help, I didn't ask the right people, right? So I kind of got smacked down again. I was like, oh, that's why you don't do this. Okay. And then suddenly being like immersed in this group of people who I could just ask for help. And I remember things like, you know, I had surgery for the first time when I hurt my knee, and Lisa did this beautiful like body meditation for me. Or right now, like when I asked Mark for help, and Mark's been coaching me, and it's been really critical to my well-being over the last 6 months. And I could never ask for help before. So that was one thing that you made me think of. But then also, like, you're reconnecting me with what really pissed me off when things changed, because people were asking us for help, right? And we were able to help them. And it was this beautiful thing. And then all of a sudden, because of the shift in the culture into that more green, financial, profit-oriented space, suddenly we were monetizing people's vulnerabilities. And these people that would come and ask for help again, we weren't serving them, right? We weren't helping them. And it was heartbreaking, especially because by that point we knew that we could, right? If we were just given the opportunity to.
I don't know. By the end, I got very upset that I felt like they were preying on the weak. Like, oh, what is a population that keeps coming here? And it's menopausal women. What can we do? How do we market specifically to that? And I understand marketing. I understand business. Marketing is a fascinating psychological fuck. But like, it just seems so far from where we started. Like, we are preying on people and taking advantage of them And because of the changes in the structure and what we were allowed to do as coaches or not allowed to do as coaches, we were never actually helping. It was just like, we're just going to string you along. You'll be fine. You'll get there. And it almost turned more into cheerleading. So in the very, very beginning, when it was like, we don't cheerlead, we coach and we guide and we help. But at the end, it was like, woohoo, you can do it. Just re-sign up.
Was one of the biggest shifts, right? Like, we celebrated when people left. Like, we talk about this with what we're doing now, right? Our greatest moment will be when somebody cancels their subscription because they feel ready to go forth on their own, right? And we went from that to how do we build a lifelong customer? Like, I remember the first time seeing that shift, like when all of that corporate influence came in, and they're like, well, we can't have people succeeding because then they leave. We need to build someone who will be a lifelong customer of this brand. And we were all like, that's not the point. Like, we have found success in empowering people so that they can go forth on their own and have a beautiful ripple effect. And a lot of the way we're approaching it now is like, yeah, we trust that there's always going to be people who need support at some moment in our lives. We have all been those people. We've seen it. You don't fix everything and then you're suddenly done. And at that point, there was so much trust, right? People really, really trusted in the company and in what we did. And then when it started being more about selling them things, like, that trust was broken. And again, that left us heartbroken as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big one as well, that just, it doesn't even need to be mentioned here with what goes on and just how wonderful it is to be seeing each other, just simply seeing each other. And part of that is because you encounter with that site this peace, this joy, and that one thing that's very important, and that's that trust with every single person, whether you met them in person or not. It's almost implicit that there's that trust.
That is why we designed things the way we did, right? Because there's no ulterior motive. The only thing that we do is offer that professional coaching support. And so we can show up completely authentically, right? If you think about it, in any environment you go in, if you can just show up completely as yourself, like, that's such a different relationship, right? Than when you have to mask, or you can only show up part way, or only use professional language in like a certain space, or not ask for help, and I think that's the piece, a big piece of what made us all so successful, was the time when we were able to show up with complete authenticity.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head.
And it put us at risk within that system as it evolved. But then you said I hit the nail on the head, so I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said how we were able to show up and behave with complete authenticity. Because I think more than anything right now, that's what people are looking for desperately. Is authenticity and genuine, trustworthy human connection. The irony to me is that consumers are clearly asking for this. And so companies are literally running in the opposite direction as fast as they can to see how quickly they can automate and digitize and turn everything into just this AI-driven, bot-infested process that exploits the vulnerabilities that people are expressing, instead of just saying, these are real human beings here, and they're going to be perfectly imperfect. They're going to show up. They're going to do the best they can. They're going to think outside the box. They're going to collaborate in any way that they see fit to help you with whatever challenge you bring to the table. And they're going to see, accept, and respect your individuality, your uniqueness, and do everything in their power to help you internalize whatever the tools and processes you need so that you can be empowered and ultimately independent, as opposed to dependent in service of the corporate bottom line. Yeah, so I love when you said authenticity, because I think that just nails it. Because you need that. We need that authenticity as employees, and consumers need that authenticity as well. And when you have it, when it's congruent, I think that's where the magic is. And what we're all talking about is how incongruent that previous experience got, where what was happening internally was very different than what was being projected externally and what the consumers were experiencing. And that can't help but bleed through from one side to the other. That authenticity is key, and I'm here for it.
It comes down to really supporting what's most meaningful to any and every one of us in way, shape, form, or fashion is that relationship and the authenticity that's associated with that. And that's something that can't be duplicated outside of humans. And so the more that happens in our lives, in our ways, through either casual relationships, professional interactions, or supportive situations, the more that authenticity is there, not just being presented to you, but for you to be able to reciprocate and express vulnerabilities, the more meaningful it just becomes at the end of the day.
Being human is just such a special experience, and being human means like you're taking time, and everybody wants to feel heard and listened to, and they want to feel special. And as Brian was saying, like all of that is slowly being taken away and it's getting automated, and you're not having interactions with people. And I believe there's studies of the younger generation not really knowing how to have conversations anymore because they're so into their technology and or using AI to do those conversations. So it's almost like you talk to them and there's like a buffering happening. And you're like, well, that's concerning. And just bringing back the personalization, I believe Starbucks is bringing back the handwritten name because they're losing customers for a number of reasons. But one of the things they want to do is they want to bring back the handwritten name and like the little flowers and things that used to be drawn on the cup. And that right there, that's a human thing. You need to have somebody write that. There needs to be imperfections. And I don't know, I think that's one of our biggest strengths because people come to us and they're so focused on their imperfections. And we're here to be like, well, no, like you're totally human. You know that? Like you're not alone in this. I too eat a tub of ice cream and it's fine. But then I drink some water and save the tub of ice cream for next month. You know, like it's fine. I had an individual that I connected with and she was blown away when I told her I drink beer. And she's like, wait, really? But like, you're a health coach. I'm like, yeah. And I like craft beer. Like, give me that juicy, hazy IPA. But yeah, like, of course I drink beer. Like, I know some people don't, but she was just like, I don't know. There's ideas that get built up in individuals' heads. And if you're like, oh, it's a health coach and I'm going to go talk to someone, like they're going to be, you know, super fit and super in line with things and like only eat vegan. And I'm like, I'm munching on chocolate while I'm massaging kale. Like it's called balance. And I think like that's one of the most important things because it's missing so much in today's world. Genuine human interaction that is sloppy and beautiful and, you know, charming and funny.
And I agree that I think it's missing. However, that is never going to be sustainable. All of the automation that you think is going to be the answer upon experiencing that will essentially inevitably show up as there's something lacking. There is something that's needed. And as we talk about just think about all the information we have these days whenever it comes to health. As an example, it's all there. Yet, is that making us any healthier? Access to it? All of this? No. It's what does it is the relationship. What does it is the support. What does it is the ability to open up about it, not just read and receive, but to be able to express and essentially put back out there and be able to work with that. That's the things that we talk about with AI, the things that we talk about with where things are going as a result of being part of this information age. In certain respects, it's concerning. However, in the long run, I see signs of it already, and I just believe that we're going to cycle back. We are going to realize that the way to make that difference is through actually relating to people, through actually sharing with them, through actually receiving from them as well. And that goes beyond information, that goes into support, that goes into feeling, that goes into authenticity, that goes into essentially the emotions that are as much a part of our lives as the elements of nutrition and physical activity. Connection.
Community.
That's part of connection. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I think about Brian's words, perfectly imperfect. You really had me with that one. And as we're talking about, everything you all are talking about now is making me think about community. It's making me think about the sense of relief I felt of seeing all of your faces come up, right? And that is that human connection. It's all been great, but it's been far from perfect. It's been imperfect. Yeah. We've been frustrated with each other. We've disappointed each other. We've all had moments here and there of misconnection, right? Or disconnection. And yet we keep going because that's part of the authenticity, right? And like Mollie said, it's not about showing up as some perfect person who knows everything. It's about being able to express we struggle too. And that is the fundamental difference. Like AI can read through all of that information, right? And scan it and tell you the things that probably aren't that different from what you would get from a Google search. But having lived it as vulnerable, very imperfect human beings, we kind of understand it in a whole different way. And, I keep coming back to, if information were all that we needed, by now we should all be set. So it's clearly not.
Yeah, I think perfection is poison, on many levels, because it's a false standard that none of us can ever reach, but yet it's one that is both imposed upon us by a variety of sources, and it's also one that I think we're all too willing sometimes to internalize, and it's just a lie, but it's a debilitating lie. It's like what Mollie mentioned, the concept of a health coach that eats chocolate and drinks beer, when these preconceptions in their mind are the vegan yoga goddess who meditates while standing on one foot at the top of a mountain. No, but that's that perfection poison that has infected the brain, and you really sit here and think, why should I even try if I'm not that? And so being able to say, yo, check it. Not only am I not that, but I'm a whole lot of not that in a lot of different ways. But the difference is I'm willing to get back up when I fall down, and I've got some knowledge and some systems in place that help me actually make progress over time. And I don't get hung up on perfection, because that ain't going to happen. I think that's a really important piece.
Yeah, it's an idea, perfection. It's an ideal, it's a concept, it's a theory. It can never be proven, and it's quite frankly just not practical. So, as you mentioned, being human and realizing that things do sometimes and sometimes don't go according to plan is part of life. It's a part of everybody's life, and it's a matter of being able to count on or learn about resilience when things don't go according to plan, and being able to come back from that to go forward. Sometimes individually, sometimes with support, and oftentimes within the community.
Like going forward and even like coming back, like working with individuals, our goal is for them to become independent and to trust in themselves, but also be able to trust in themselves to know that they can come back at any time and work through things. Like, that's important too. Like, not everything is a one and done. And it's okay to return to a support system that works, and it is positive, and it helps you feel like a better person, a better version of yourself, or how you want to become, and like the who of your being. And that comes from trust, and even just trusting that you can go back. Like the whole, like, what is it? One step forward, two steps backwards. But eventually you are stepping on a step you were already on. So how far back are you going? You're just going to go back and be like, okay, but wait, I know what to do here. So then my next step is going to be even better. And all right, I might go back, but hey, like, been here before. I don't think that's a terrible saying. I have a great visual in my head, but
I love
like
that.
going
I
back
call
isn't
it
a bad thing.
not at all. Yeah, I call it messy because that's really to me what it is. But it's a beautiful mess, and that's
Yeah, I was
definitely
going to
part
say,
of it.
Mark has worked
Right.
with me now for, I don't know, 9 months or so. And like when you say, I mean, I can't tell you how often that like I get on my coaching session with Mark and I'm like, oh, geez, like, okay. You know, like this is all a mess. This is a mess, right? Yet you always accept me where I'm at. And Molly, I think that was just an incredible idea. I never thought of it that way because we think of this nonlinear piece, right? We all know that progress is nonlinear, but I think you're spot on. This idea of like, you get to go, oh, but I've been here before because I took that step forward. And yeah, maybe I went back, but then I'm revisiting and essentially I'm practicing over and over again, sometimes for quite a long period of time over and over again. But yet it is each time you are developing, right? And one of the things that you all have made me think of is like the most beautiful part of this job was the deprogramming, right? The ability to look at people and be like, you are okay. I know everything around you, everything in our culture, our media, all of the marketing has told you that you're not, but you are. And then once they finally like realize like, holy shit, I am. And I've actually been doing a really good job this whole time. And I'm not broken. And I'm just retracing my steps sometime, but that's okay because that's practicing. And like that's when the work could begin. Mark, you can play that back for me.
And recognizing it takes time. The number of people.
Next week. I was like, next week.
Anytime she shows up, be like, I have some words of wisdom for you.
Because I'm hearing myself going like, fuck, it's like, that's, yeah.
I say nothing. I say nothing. I know nothing.
Well, it's like getting caught up in this idea that progress should be relentless, linear, and always forward. And I think, Bex, you and I had that conversation that nature is cyclical, so who are we to think that we're not? Again, this is another one of the lies that's been kind of imprinted on us and told to us that we should be in this relentless race for self-improvement and perfection. Hey, sometimes, you know what? We need to be back where we were 3, 4, 5 years ago just to remember that, okay, that's part of me too. And this is still part of me. And it's okay. It's a good thing, So, it eats my brain. That idea that, we I think it must come from the corporate world, this quarterly earnings obsession, and it's imposed upon us that, we need to be the same. No, we don't. No, we frickin' don't. Not at all.
No, what we get to do is we get to keep going forward. We get to keep going. We get to get up. And in the process, I invite people to acknowledge, hey, it didn't stop you. You even went back 5 steps and look at this. You're still wanting to go. You're still wanting to move. So even 5 steps didn't stop you.
Boom.
Look at that. Yeah. So that's progress. Progress isn't necessarily going in a particular direction always preferred. Usually progress is simply going without stopping. And I don't mean taking breaks. I mean giving up. Please.
One of the best examples of where to find the strength for progress. And I use this a lot because people today want the instantaneous results. Like, I ate healthy for a week. Why am I not down 5 pounds? Because that's unrealistic. So I would use the best form of progress is watching a baby learn to walk. A human being is unable to walk until after 1 year old, and then I go as far as like a baby can't hold up its head. It can't hold up its spine. So it takes time to figure out it has a head. It can lift its spine. Then it's got these weird things hanging off of its body. And before it can even walk, they have to figure out how to roll over. They need to figure out how to push themselves up. They need to crawl. Then they're on their knees. Shit, I walked on my knees for months. Apparently I ran on them too. I don't know. But it takes time. And I say, like, could you imagine if the first time you fell after trying to walk, you just, it's not for me. You know, like just put it into this like reality that like change takes time. It's hard and it has to be constant. And you have to find what's going to be your support. Is it going to be somebody holding your hands? Is it going to be you pulling yourself up on a chair? Oh shit, the chair topples over. I'll try a table next time. Like maybe it's just I'm obsessed with my nieces and I've been watching them grow, but seeing the development of a human and the constant trying, they don't give up. Like annoyingly so in some situations. So at what point did we lose that?
I was going to say that is so beautiful. And also it makes me realize that not only is that happening, but then imagine that happening. And for that entire year, you're bombarded with messages that tells you you're failing because you're not walking.
Right. Like, oh, well, Susie down the street was walking. She did it in 3 minutes. Fuck Susie.
That is not professional language.
It's not a competition.
Learning how to ride a bicycle, okay?
Yeah.
Adults, like, there's still things that like some adults don't know because it didn't work out, but that doesn't mean they can't. I can't do a cartwheel. I'm pretty sure I have no arm strength, but like I can't do a cartwheel. Does that mean I'll never be able to do a cartwheel? I mean, maybe. But there's things you can do to try, like I could do push-ups, probably won't. But like there's still opportunities to grow, but you have to recognize it's going to take time. And especially like at 37, I've never been able to do a cartwheel. You think my muscles all of a sudden will be like, I got you. They're going to be saying, no, bitch, I do not have you. You need to work harder.
And then you get to pick though. Like your point is, well, take it like, we channel health into this like lose weight, right? Or these specific things. I mean, that's the whole reason we've decided to pull back and go like, no, this is holistic. This is all interrelated. And you get to choose what you need to do. Right? Maybe you don't want to do a freaking cartwheel and that's okay. Maybe it's not important to you. Maybe you have these other things that are more important to you. And rather than have, go with this dominant messaging that says, here's the thing that you need to do. Instead, you get to, that was probably the other beautiful thing we got to do is help people attune to themselves and like be able to assess not from some external rubric, but from what they felt mattered to them and what they considered true health to be.
Like I had a number of people that would be like, oh, well, my coffee creamer, it's so many calories. I was like, listen, no, you measure your coffee creamer with your heart. That's the first thing you do in the morning. If you have a second cup, maybe you're a little more mindful, but like, don't take away pleasurable moments. It's just a perspective shift. And I think people, again, with like the growth of technology and the information age, and then you have the same marketing information over and over again, and everyone gets this whole like subliminal messaging and that like, oh, well, this is what needs to get done. And like being able to break through that noise is the most important part. And again, to like bring them back to like touch some grass. We are human. It's going to be messy. It's going to be hard and it's going to suck, but you can still do it. And like, I can do it with you. Like, it's just people want to know that they're supported. Do just parallel play. Like, did you guys ever like have your friends come over and like just hang out when I clean my room? It's fine.
Yeah, but that pleasure is part of being human.
No,
right?
It's just parallel play. You just want to have someone.
I wasn't invited, so I don't know.
I'm sorry, Mark. Next
Clean
time.
your room.
That pleasure is part of being human. And I actually just messaged one of our clients yesterday who was talking about kind of something similar. And I was like, why do we call it a guilty pleasure? Why not just pleasure? Why is that something that we need to have some sort of caveat around, right? And I'm thinking of we've all been there where we would have a client message us and say, it's my child's birthday party. What should I do? And we're all like, have a piece of cake. Yeah, you probably don't want to do that every single day, but it's your child's birthday party. Go enjoy it, participate. And again, that was to me the beautiful part of the job and is the beautiful part of the job. Initially, I think we almost had to give people permission to be human, right? And to find joy and pleasure. And then eventually they were able to own that. I love the fact that we had the president of our company be able to get on at the beginning of this call and say, I need to go take care of my daughter tonight. I'm not going to be able to be here, right? That we could all say, great, go ahead. We support you. We got this. And I think that, going back to individual versus collective, we all need support, right? Just the same way that we're offering it to our clients, we need it. And so if I'm out there by myself, coaching by myself, then, what happens when I get sick? What happens when I have a family issue? I think this describes what's happening to so many people in our culture and in these other systems right now. It's like there's nothing that creates wiggle room for life to happen. There's nothing that creates wiggle room to be human. Illness, death, parenting, joy, right? They're like in a traditional workplace, there's no space for any of this if we're operating as individuals. And so I think, to me, outside of the things we talked about, collaboration, sharing different backgrounds and viewpoints, it's also this idea of like we get to go forth and be human and have human experiences, and we have other people to have our backs. And if one of us hits a wall and we're sick or we have a death in our family, we have other people that can come in and step in and help take care of our clients so that we're not feeling stressed out about not being able to come through for them because we're human and we have living we need to do.
Any thoughts, Brian?
I feel like this could be a good place to pause this conversation, because I think there's so much that we've explored and so many valuable perspectives have been shared that it's a place for me to take some time to reflect. Because I feel like every time I talk to anyone in this group, collectively or individually, I learn something, and tonight is no different.
Beautiful.
We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, know that MHC sponsors more than just the podcast. We have free self-paced courses, printable resources, and articles, all to help you get healthier. Coaches create these with no hidden marketing agenda. Our only mission is to make better health more accessible to everyone who wants to make positive change in their lives. If you share this goal with us, please join us on Patreon, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and press the like button below and subscribe. That's the best way to support us right now as we work to support others.
Looking at the end of the page, which I think the script, we really hit a lot of the things here.
There was a script?
But it was, we had... We had like kind of a general notes.
Yeah, it was on your teleprompter, Brian.
It was shared in Slack. I'll put it out again.
Okay, scratch that last thing I just said.
I can see when we start on time, we don't have technical issues and we're in a bit more of a flow. Like, we'll get used to it. I did have a lag, which was hard because I was interrupting, but then voices would come through. But overall, I'm just immensely grateful to have spent this time with you.
I'll chime in afterwards and say I am very glad that we decided to go ahead, in spite of the technical difficulties in the beginning, to see where this landed. And as I anticipated and as I believed, it's truly wonderful yet again.
Everything, it just flows so organically. And then there's also so many other topics to touch on, like AI as a terrible situation and cyclical things with menses, and nature is always changing. And can we just acknowledge the fact that women have weekly hormonal shifts? Like, there's so much more that can be covered. And I think it's just so cool that this, baselines, again, it's community and safety, because I am a very nervous person. Believe it. And like this was wonderful. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you can do this. You didn't fall over. If you did, you guys were kind enough to wipe the mud off my face. But like, no, this was really, really good. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. It's empowering. It's enlightening. I think it also gives an example of what a space can look and feel like when there's a conscious effort made to not bring biases or ideological perspectives or anything other than just authenticity and acceptance to the table. It's amazing what you can learn and the connections that can be made and strengthened.
Is how not to curse in professional environments.
Define professional environment.
If I know.
Can you see my braces?
Oh, well, that can be an iffy definition. It's kind of like everyone has a butthole. We all have our own definitions of what.
Oh, my people,
I have
my
not
people.
gotten out in my unemployment. I apologize.
Mm.
Do we just hit the mark button and just leave it pressed? Is that
Yeah, just one long edit.
I'm fascinated by the use of the word
want this whole thing
butthole.
fixed.
Like that is somehow an alternative to cursing. Is that where we're going with this? That is the professional version of asshole.
Well, no, like everyone has buttholes and they're all different. So everyone has a different definition and opinion.
Right, but it felt very restrained. It felt like, a subtle use of the term.
Guys, I'm trying to be an adult.
Why?
Okay.
Okay.
How's that working?
You keep
Not at all.
keep trying. Yeah.
I keep buying
trust,
arts and crafts.
Trust us, it doesn't get better. Just
Different.
Yeah.
Just different.
Oh, I noticed.